Hi everybody, this is Crystal. Welcome to my channel, Bagoday Crochet. So today I'm going to teach you how to crochet a hat and matching scarf set. This is what it looks like. I really like it. I think it's beautiful. And don't be intimidated by it. As long as you know the basic stitches, you can do this. Trust me, you can do it. I'm going to show you how. So we got some post here stitches for some texture, and then we got some cluster stitches here for some texture as well. So this will fit probably about 19 to 22 inch head, and it's about 8 inches long. If you want to make it a slouchy, I do tell you in the video how you can do that. And if you need it to be a bigger size, I will put in the description box how you do that. You would just need to add an extra row of increases up here, and I'll explain that in the description box. But it's really nice. So we have that. The hat and the scarf are both made with the same yarn. I'll show you the scarf here in just a second. I made this with Malabrigo Rios yarn. It is a 100% superwash merino hand dyed. You do not have to use this yarn. By all means, you do not have to use this yarn. Any 4-weight yarn will work just fine. But if you are interested, the color I use is called whole grain. Color is 696. There's 210 yards per hank, and for the hat you're probably going to need about 150 yards of any 4-weight yarn. You can use Red Heart Super Saver, Caron Simply Soft. You can use any hand dyed yarn you want. As long as it's a 4-weight, it does not matter. It's going to be beautiful regardless of what yarn you use. I probably would not recommend, though, a yarn that's extremely variegated, because then you're going to lose the post stitches and the cluster stitches in the mix. A striping yarn would be good, and a solid yarn would be good, or a tonal yarn. Any of those would work well. I think one super variegated, though, would be kind of just wasting the stitch. So about 150 yards for the hat. Now the scarf, I didn't do a full scarf because I'm not going to wear a scarf, but I do show you how to make the scarf. And you're going to make a scarf about 8 inches wide, and about, you can make it as long as you want, but about 72 inches long. You'll probably need around 400 yards of 4-weight yarn to do that for the hat and scarf set. But of course you can make your scarf smaller or longer if you want. Remember, any 4-weight yarn will be fine. And then for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm using, well, this is what you're going to need to use for the tutorial, a size J, which is a 6mm crochet hook. And as always, if you are new, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I have many hundreds and hundreds of crochet tutorials, all very easy to follow. Please check them out in the description box. There is a link at the very top with all my crochet tutorials. And please, everybody, don't forget to hit that like button. Let's begin, shall we? Alright, so this is the top down, so we're gonna start at the top and work our way down. So we're gonna start with a slip knot on our hook. Now, if you prefer to use the magic circle or magic ring here, you can. I'm not going to. What I'm gonna do is work a chain of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'm going to slip stitch into my first chain to form my ring. So I throw my tail over, and usually I use my middle finger and I put it in between my hook and the chain like that, and then I'll slip stitch. That allows for me to be able to keep my ring open there while I work in it. So I'm going to chain 1. Now that chain 1 does not count as a stitch. I'm going to work 12 double crochets through the center of the ring. So I'm going to yarn over, go through the center, I can move my finger now, draw up a loop, and do a double crochet. So remember, that chain 1 doesn't count as anything. So that's 1 double crochet, and we're going to keep doing that, going through the ring, drawing up a loop, and then doing our double crochet. There's 2, and we want to do that for a total of 12 times. So row 1 is 12 double crochets through the center of our ring. If you need to push them over as you go, that's fine too. So I will meet back up with you whenever I finish out my 12 double crochets. Alright, so I'm coming to the end of row 1. I have my 12 double crochets. Now I'm going to end up by slip stitching into my first double. Remember, not the chain 1 that's right here, but the very first double crochet. We're going to go ahead and slip stitch into that, and that will end round 1. Now you can take your tail, and usually it'll close up that center, pull on it a little bit smaller, and then later on we can sew it together the rest of the way. So why don't we go ahead and start round 2. Round 2, we are going to chain 1. Again, that chain 1 does not count as a stitch. And we're going to work right back into the same spot here that we just slip stitched into, and we're going to work 2 double crochets into that spot. So there's 1 and 2. And then we're going to move to the next stitch, and we're going to work 2 double crochets into that spot. 1, 2, the next stitch, 2 double crochets into that spot. So row 2 is 2 double crochets into every single stitch until we make it back around to our starting point. So I'm going to continue around putting 2 doubles in every stitch, and I'll meet back up with you when we make it to the end of row 2. Alright, I've come to the end of row 2, and you should have a total of 24 stitches now. So I'm going to end a row 2 by slip stitching into my first double crochet. Just like that. And now we will begin row 3. So we're going to chain 1, which does not count as a stitch. We're going to put 1 double crochet right back into the very first stitch that we just slip stitched into. Like that. Now the next stitch we are going to do an increase in, but we're going to be working some front post double crochets in this round. So we're going to be working into the next stitch, and it's going to be an increase stitch. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a double crochet just like normal on top of the stitch, and then we're going to put a front post double crochet around the post of the same stitch. So you can see my double crochets here on top of this stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to go around the post of the stitch and work a front post double crochet. So that put 2 stitches into 1. So now we're going to begin our repeat of row 3. We're going to put 1 regular double crochet into the next stitch, and then the next stitch will be an increase. So that's where we'll put a regular double crochet into the top of it, and then we'll also put a front post double crochet around the post of the same stitch. Just like that. So we're starting some posts, and once you get some more rows going, you'll be able to see the post more clearly. Again, we're going to repeat that again. So we're going to put a regular double crochet into the next stitch, and then the next stitch will be the increase stitch. So we'll put a double crochet into the top of it, and then a front post double crochet around the post of the same stitch. And this is the pattern that we're going to repeat for row 3 all the way around. A regular double crochet into the next stitch, into the top of the next stitch, and then the next stitch will be the increase stitch. That's where we put a regular double crochet into the top of it, and also a front post double crochet around the post of the same stitch, just like that. So I'm going to keep repeating this pattern all the way around for row 3 until I make it back to my starting point. Regular double crochet, and then the increase stitch, which is a regular double crochet in the top, and then a front post double around the post of the same stitch. And I'll see you back around here in just a second. Alright, so I've made it to the end of row 3, and you should have a total of 36 stitches now, and your last stitch should have been an increase stitch. And then we're going to end by slip stitching into our first double crochet. So now we're going to begin round 4. So we're going to chain 1, which does not count as a stitch. We're going to go back into that very first stitch and do 1 double crochet. Now the next stitch, we are going to put a front post double crochet around the stitch. We're not going to put one on top of it. It's not an increase stitch, so we just go around the stitch and do a front post double crochet, just like that. Now the next stitch will be an increase stitch, and if you look, you can see it is the post from the previous row. So what we're going to do is put a double crochet into the top of the post and a front post double crochet around the post of the same stitch, which is the post from the previous row, just like that. And that's going to be the repeat for round 4. So let's go ahead and do it again. So we're going to put a double crochet into the top of the next stitch. And then the next stitch, which is right here, we're going to put a front post double crochet. It's not an increase, so we just go right around the post and put a front post double crochet. And now the next stitch is going to be an increase stitch, and you can see it is the post stitch from the previous row. So we're going to go into the top of it and put a regular double crochet into the top. And we're also going to put a front post double crochet around the post of it, which is the post from the previous row. And this is what we're going to repeat for round 4. Let's go ahead and do that again. So we're going to put a double crochet into the top of the next stitch. And then the next stitch, which is right here, we're just going to put a front post double crochet. No increase, just the front post double right around the stitch. And then the next stitch is the increase. You can see it is the post from the previous row. So we put a double crochet into the top of it and a front post double crochet around the post of it. You can see it's the post from the previous row. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat this pattern all the way around for round 4 until I make it back to my starting point. Double crochet into the next, front post double crochet into the next, and increase into the next. So double crochet into the top of the stitch and front post double crochet around the post of the stitch. And I'll meet back up with you when I make it around to the beginning. Alright, I've come to the end of round 4. Your last stitch should have been an increase, and you should have a total of 48 stitches now. So let's go ahead and end by slip stitching into our first double crochet. And we'll go ahead and begin round 5. So we're going to chain 1, which does not count as a stitch. We're going to go right back into that very first stitch, and we're going to do a double crochet. And then the next stitch you can see is a post stitch from the previous row. We're going to do a front post double crochet around that post. And then sometimes you got to move your stitches around. You can see the next stitch is a regular double crochet. We're going to go ahead and put just a double crochet at the top of that stitch, like that. And then the next stitch is a post stitch, and this is where we're going to increase. So we're going to put a double crochet into the top of it and a front post double crochet around the post of it. And you can see that it's posts from the previous row. We keep our posts lined up just like that. So that's a repeat for row 5. For round 5, let's go ahead and do it again. So we're going to do a double crochet into the next stitch. And if you look, the next stitch is a post stitch, so we're going to do a front post double crochet around the next stitch. The next stitch is just a regular double crochet. So we're going to do a double crochet into the top of that stitch. And the next stitch is a post stitch, and now this is where we're going to increase. So we're going to put a regular double crochet into the top of it, and also a front post double crochet around the post of it. Just like that. So that's what we're going to, the repeat we're going to follow now for round 5. Let's go ahead and do it again. We're going to do a double crochet into the next stitch, a front post double crochet around the post of the next stitch, a double crochet into the top of the next stitch, and then the next stitch is our increase stitch. It is a post stitch, you could see, so we go into the top of it and we put a double crochet. And then we also put a front post double crochet around the post of it. Let's repeat it again. Double crochet into the top of the next stitch. Front post double crochet around the post of the next stitch. Double crochet into the top of the next stitch, and then the next stitch is our increase stitch. Here's the post stitch, so we go into the top of it and put a double crochet and a front post double crochet around the same stitch. So I'm going to repeat this pattern all the way around until I make it back around here to my starting point. Alright, so I've come to the end of row 5, and you should have ended in an increase there, and you should have a total of 60 stitches. So we're going to go ahead and slip stitch into our first stitch to end that round. Now what we're going to do is pull up a little bit and we're going to lay it out. So this is the crown of our hat. We're not going to increase anymore, and it's okay if it's flipping up like that because that's what post stitches do. But kind of press it down like this, and we're going to take a quick measure. Now this is going to be a little bit smaller than what I would normally do a crown, but that's okay because it's going to work out. So what we have now is I have about between 5 1/4 and 5 1/2 inches. So that's what you want. You want anywhere between probably 5 and 6 inches. You know, 5 1/2 would probably be ideal, but I got about in between 5 1/4 and 5 1/2, so that's the crown. That's it, okay? Normally I would do the crown a little bit bigger, but not on this hat. So we're going to go ahead and start row 6. Now row 6 is going to start the repeat rows of the hat. Now remember, if you're flipping up, that's fine. We'll take care of it with the rest of the rows that we do. So row 6, we are going to chain 1 like that. We're going to go back into the same stitch and single crochet. So that chain 1 does not count as a stitch. And we're going to work around and put 1 single crochet into every single stitch. So there's no more increasing now on the hat. It's 60 stitches now. That's always what we're going to have. And now for, you know, round 6, we're just working a round of 1 single crochet in every stitch until we get back to the beginning. So I'll meet back up with you at the end of round 6. Alright, so I've made it to the end of round 6, and you should still have 60 stitches. So we're going to go ahead and end by slip stitching into our first single crochet, not the chain 1 that's here, the first single crochet. And that will end round 6, and we'll start round 7. Now round 7 is going to be a row where we do cluster stitches. So we're going to chain 1, which does not count as a stitch, and we're going to work right back into this very first stitch, and we're going to work a half double crochet. Just like that. And we're going to start our cluster stitch like this. This is how the cluster stitch is done. We're going to yarn over. We're going to go into the exact same stitch that we just worked into, and we're going to draw up a loop. And we have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and go through the first 2 loops on our hook, like that. Then we're going to yarn over again, and we're going to skip 1 stitch and go into the next and draw up a loop. And we're going to yarn over again and go into the exact same stitch again and draw up a loop. You'll have 6 loops on your hook. Yarn over and go through all 6 and chain 1, just like that. Let's do that again. So we're going to yarn over and go back into the exact same stitch that we just finished in and draw up a loop, and we have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and go through the first 2, then we're going to yarn over and skip 1 stitch and go into the next and draw up a loop, yarn over again and go into that exact same stitch, draw up a loop, 6 loops on your hook, yarn over and go through all 6 and chain 1. So this is what we're going to do all the way around until we get to the last stitch of our round. Let's do it again. We're going to yarn over, go back into the exact same stitch that we just finished in, draw up a loop, and you got 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and go through the first 2 loops. Then we're going to yarn over, skip 1 stitch, and in the next we go into it and draw up a loop, yarn over again, go into the same stitch, draw up a loop, 6 loops on your hook, yarn over and go through all 6 and chain 1. And we're going to keep repeating this. And this is how we work the little cluster stitches. So I'm going to repeat this all the way around until I get to the last stitch of my row, and that's where I'll meet back up with you. Alright, so I've made it to the end of round 7. If it's flipping up, it's alright because we're going to flip it this way eventually to make the hat. So if it's looking wonky, it's okay. So I've made it to the end here, and I finished out my little puff, and I chained, or my little cluster, and I chained 1, and I have 1 stitch that remains. So this is how we're going to end these cluster rounds. Okay, so we're going to yarn over and go into the same stitch that we just worked, just like normal, and draw up a loop, and we have our 3 loops, and we go over, yarn over and go through the first 2. Now normally we would skip 1 and go into the next, but we're not going to do that because we have 1 stitch left, and in order to prevent a gap here at the beginning, we only need 1 stitch left. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and yarn over and go directly into the last stitch and draw up a loop, and then yarn over and go into the same stitch again and draw up a loop, and you'll have your 6 loops on your hook. Yarn over and go through all 6. Do not chain 1. Go ahead and end by slip stitching directly into that first half double crochet, and that will end round 7, which is the cluster row. And you'll have, if you look, you can see the stitches here at the top. You'll still have 60 stitches. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start round 8. We're going to chain 1, and it is a repeat of round 6. It's a single crochet row. So we're going to go back into the very first stitch and single crochet, and we're going to work around, and we're going to put 1 single crochet in every stitch. You're actually putting 1 single crochet into the top of every cluster and 1 single crochet into the chain 1 space, which is kind of tight, but as I mentioned, if you flip your work, you can see the stitches really well where you need to put your single crochets. So row 8, I'm just repeating row 6 by putting 1 single crochet in every stitch all the way around until I make it back to my starting point. Alright, I'm coming to the end of round 8. Now I want to show you something here. So here's the top of my cluster. I single crocheted into it. I know this right here looks like a stitch that you're supposed to single crochet into. It's not. It's just a slip stitch from the previous round. So do not go into that. Go directly into your very first single crochet over here and slip stitch into that, and you should have a total of 60 stitches there, like that. At the end of round 8, your hat will flip right side out like that, and maybe start to look kind of like a hat. a little bit. All right, now for, let's see, round 9, we're just going to repeat what we did for round 7, which is the cluster row. So chain 1, go back into the same stitch and half double crochet, and we're just going to do our cluster stitches just like we did on the cluster stitch row before. We yarn over, go back into that same stitch, draw up a loop, 3 loops, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, skip 1, and in the next draw up a loop, yarn over, go into the same stitch, draw up a loop, 6 loops on your hook, yarn over and go through all 6 and chain 1. So we're just repeating the cluster row again, just like we did before. And I'll meet back up with you at the last stitch, and I'll show you how to end the cluster row one more time. Alright, so I'm going to repeat this for round 9, and I'll meet back up with you at the last stitch. Alright, I'm coming to the end of round 9 here, and I have my 1 stitch that remains. So remember, this is how we end the cluster row. We yarn over, go back into that same stitch just like normal, draw up a loop, 3 loops, yarn over, go through the first 2, and then we're going to yarn over, and we're not going to skip a stitch. We're going to go directly into this one, draw up a loop, yarn over again, same stitch, draw up a loop, 6 loops on your hook, yarn over and go through all 6. Do not chain 1, directly slip stitch into your first half double crochet right here, just like that. So that's what it starts to look like. Now what we're going to do is do the single crochet row again. So we're going to be repeating what we did on row 6 and 8. So for row 10, we are going, you should still have 60 stitches. So for row 10, we're going to chain 1, go back into the same stitch and single crochet. And then we're going to work across, putting 1 single crochet in every stitch until we make it back around to our starting point. So it's just a repeat of the other single crochet rows. Okay, I'll meet back up with you when I make it to the end of round 10. Alright, I'm coming here to the end of round 10, and I single crocheted into the top of this cluster, and remember, this looks like it's stitched, but it's not. It's the slip stitch from the previous row. This one is the chain 1, so you have to make sure that you slip stitch into the first single crochet, and you'll have 60 stitches still at the end of round 10. Alright, so now we're going to start round 11. Round 11, we are going to chain 1, which does not count as a stitch. And we're going to go back to the very first stitch, and we're going to do a double crochet. So we're going to do a round of double crochet this time. And we're going to work around putting 1 double crochet in every stitch until we get back to our starting point. So round 11, swan double every stitch, and I'll meet back up with you when we make it back around to the beginning. Alright, I've made it to the end of round 11, and you still should have 60 stitches. So we're going to go ahead and end by slip stitching into our first double crochet. Like that. And then we're going to start round 12. We're going to chain 1. We're going to go back into the very first stitch, and we're going to do a double crochet. And then in the next stitch, which is right here, not this right here, this is our chain 1, and this is the stitch that we just went into. This very next one, we're going to do a front post double crochet. That. And then we're going to do a regular double crochet into the top of the next stitch. And then we'll do a front post double crochet around the post of the next. So this will be the repeat for round 12. It's a double crochet into the next, and then front post double crochet into the next, double crochet into the next, and front post double crochet into the next. And I'm going to repeat this pattern for round 12 of the double crochet, front post double crochet, double crochet, front post double crochet, all the way around until I make it back to my starting point. Alright, I've made it to the end of round 12, and your last stitch should have been a front post double crochet. And we're going to go ahead and end by slip stitching into our first double, and you should have 60 stitches still. Now round 13, we're just going to repeat round 12, what we did on round 12. So we're going to chain 1, and double crochet back into that very first stitch there that we just slip stitched into. And we're going to do our double crochet, front post double crochet, repeat. And you'll see that our post will line up. So double crochet, front post double crochet, double crochet, front post double crochet. And I'm going to repeat this all the way around. So we're just repeating what we did on the previous row. What we did on row 12, we're repeating now for row 13. It's okay if your stitches flip up. Post stitches always flip. They flip. So I'll meet back up with you at the end of round 13. Alright, I've made it to the end of round 13, and my last stitch should have been a front post double crochet. I should have 60 stitches still. End by slip stitching into your first double crochet, and now what we're going to do, it's okay if it's flipping. It wouldn't be right if it wasn't flipping, alright? So that's normal. It'll get taken care of later. So what we're going to do now is start our repeat over again. We're going to start from row 6, the single crochet row. We're going to repeat rows 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 again. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 8 row repeat. I'll put timestamps below so you can refer back to row 6. So for row 14, we're just going to repeat row 6, which is a single crochet row. Then we do the cluster row. Then we do the single crochet. Then we do the cluster. Then we do the single crochet. And then we're going to do our regular double crochet. And then our 2 rows of front post and double crochet, regular double crochets. And then I will meet back up with you once we get done repeating rows 6 through 13 one more time. Alright, so I repeated rows 6 through 13 one time, and you can see I'm down here, and that ended me at row 21, starting from the top. So I'm going to finish off with one more round, because you can see how my posts are flipping here at the end, with a round of single crochet to finish it off. So this will be round 22, my final round. I'm going to chain 1, I'm going to go back into the same stitch and single crochet, and I'm going to put 1 single crochet in every stitch all the way around. Now, if you want to do more than one round, that's fine. That's completely up to you. If you want to make this a slouchy, all you have to do is make it longer, so you could repeat rows 6 through 13 again if you wanted to make it, like a slouchy hat, if you prefer those types of hats. But I'm going to continue and finish my final round, 1 single crochet in every stitch. I'm going to end with a slip stitch into my first single crochet. I'll have 60 stitches, and then I'll hide any tails, and I'll meet back up with you at the end here. Alright, there it is. I like it. I like it a lot. I think it turned out really nice. You will see me wearing this one. I like to add hats to my collection. So do you guys want to go ahead and I'll show you how to make a scarf to match? Alright, so I'm not going to do the whole scarf, but I will show you the repeat rows, because I won't wear a scarf with mine. I'll just wear the hat. So we're going to go ahead and start the scarf off with a slip knot on our hook. Now you can make your scarf as the width that you want. We're still using a size J hook, okay? Now the multiple is going to need to be an odd multiple of 3 plus 2, which means that you need to chain in an odd multiple of 3. Like say 27, that's an odd multiple of 3. 30 is not. 33 would be an odd multiple of 3. So however thick you want it. So here's 27, and then that's my odd multiple of 3, and then you need to add 2 more chains for a total of 29, okay? And then what we'll do is we'll do a double crochet in the 4th chain from our hook. So once you got your odd multiple of 3 plus 2, or if you want to follow along with me, I chained 29. Double crochet in the 4th stitch from the hook. And then we're going to work along, and we're going to put 1 double crochet in every stitch for the length of the chain. Okay, following along with me, you'll have a total of 27 stitches, and that includes this little guy here on the end. This chain here, he counts as a stitch. So row 2 is going to start the repeat row for the scarf. So what we'll do is we will chain 1, which does not count as a stitch, and turn our work. And we're going to put a double crochet right back here into the very first stitch. Like that. And then we're going to work a front post double crochet into the next, and then a regular double crochet into the next. Front post double crochet, regular double crochet. So we're just going to do the double crochet, a front post double crochet, repeat until we get to the end of the row, kind of like we did on the hat. We're going to be doing very similar stitches to the hat, except for we're working them in back and forth rows, as opposed to the round, which we did in the hat. So double crochet, a front post double crochet, double crochet, a front post double crochet, all the way until you get to the end of row 2. Alright, I'm coming to the end of the row, and your last stitch should be just a regular double crochet right here into the last stitch here. Okay, there's my front post. Let me see where I'm at. Okay, there's my front post double, and then right here in this last stitch, you just do a regular double. That will be your last stitch, and you will have 27 stitches still. That will end row 2. Row 3, we are going to chain 1 and turn our work. And we're going to put a double crochet into the very first stitch. Now this time, what we're going to do is we're going to back post double crochet into the next stitch. So the back post is you yarn over and you go around the stitch from the back like that. The reason why we have to do that because we have to keep our posts lined up, but we're on the back side of our work, so we have to work the back post. And then a double crochet into the top of the next. And then back post double into the next. And regular double into the top of the next. Back post double into the next. And a regular double into the next. And we're going to repeat this pattern of the back post double and then regular double, back post, regular double, back post, regular double, all the way until we get to the end of the row. When you turn your work around to the right side, you'll see what I mean. See how the posts are lined up now. So keep repeating that. Back post double, regular double, back post, regular double, all the way until you get to the end of row 3. Alright, so I made it to the end of row 3, still have 27 stitches, and now I'm going to start row 4 by chaining 1 and turning my work. So there is my post stitch row. You can actually make it as thick as you want, you know, by doing those 2 rows back and forth. I'm just kind of trying to make it as, you know, thick as the hat is, but by all means you can change it up. Alright, so now I'm not going to do a single crochet row. I'm going to do the cluster row. So what I'm going to do is yarn over and I'm going to put a half double crochet into the very first stitch. This is row 4 we're on. And then I'm going to start my cluster by yarning over, going back into that same stitch, drawing up a loop, 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, skip 1 stitch, go into the next, draw up a loop, yarn over, go into the same stitch, draw up a loop, 6 loops on my hook, yarn over and go through all 6 and chain 1. So it's the same cluster that we've been doing, that we did on the hat. Again, yarn over, go into the same stitch that we just completed, draw up a loop, 3 loops on my hook, yarn over and go through first 2, yarn over, skip 1 and go into the next, draw up a loop, yarn over, go into the same stitch again, draw up a loop, 6 loops on my hook, yarn over and go through all 6 and chain 1. So I'm going to repeat this pattern until I get near the end of the row, and I will meet back up with you there and I'll show you how to end row 4. I'm coming to the end of row 4, our cluster row, and where we ended a little bit different than we did on the hat. So I just did my last cluster here and I chained 1 and I have 2 stitches that remain. So I'm going to go ahead and yarn over. I'm going to go into the same one that we just finished in, draw up a loop. We got our 3 loops, yarn over and go through the first 2. I'm going to skip 1 and I'm going to be working into the last stitch. I'm going to yarn over and go into that last stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over again, go into the same last stitch, draw up a loop, 6 loops on our hook. I'm going to yarn over and go through all 6. I am not going to chain 1. I'm going to yarn over and go back into the same spot again and do a half double crochet. So that's how we end the cluster row when we work it back and forth. So for row 5, I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work, and I'm going to do a row of single crochet now. So I'm going to go back into the very first stitch and single crochet. I'm going to put 1 in every stitch. If you look, you'll have 27 stitches. 27's our number. So 1 single crochet in every stitch. This is row 5 that we're on until I get to the end of the row. All right, I made it to the end. I still have my 27 stitches. We'll go ahead and start row 6, which is another cluster row. So we're going to chain 1 and turn, and we're going to repeat what we did on row 4 here. So we're going to yarn over and half double into the very first stitch, like that. And then we're going to yarn over, go into the same stitch, draw up a loop, 3 loops there, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, skip 1 and go into the next, draw up a loop, yarn over, go into the same one, draw up a loop, 6 loops, yarn over and go through all 6 and chain 1. So we're repeating what we did on row 4 now for row 6. The cluster row. And I'm going to meet back up with you at the end and show you how to end the cluster row one more time when we're working it back and forth. All right, here's how we end the cluster row one more time. So I have 2 stitches that remain here, so I'm going to yarn over and go back into the same cluster here that I just ended in, drop a loop, there's 3 loops, yarn over and go through those 2, and then I'm going to yarn over and skip 1 stitch, and we're going to work in the last stitch, drop a loop, oops, that's not the last stitch, sorry, yarn over, skip 1, go into the last stitch, drop a loop, yarn over, same stitch, drop a loop, 6 loops on your hook, yarn over and go through all 6. Do not chain 1. Now we're going to yarn over and half double crochet into that same spot. Just like that. And that's how you end the cluster row. So that was row 6. Now we're going to start row 7. We're going to chain 1 and turn our work. Now we're going, this is the back side of our work, and now we're going to work a double crochet row. So we're going to yarn over, go back into the same stitch, and double crochet, and we're going to work 1 double crochet in every stitch across until we get to the end of the row. All right, I come to the end of row 7, and that is the end of the repeat. So I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to start repeating again, starting with row 2 where we did the front post, double crochet, regular double crochet, repeat. So now we just keep repeating rows 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So the scarf is a 6-row repeat. And remember, you can put more cluster rows if you want, and more post rows if you want. I just tried to keep them the same as the hat. Two rows of clusters, and then the same amount of rows as posts, you know, so the scarf looks like the hat. But that is up to you. Now you just repeat those rows. Remember, there'll be timestamps for you to go back and look until you get the scarf as long as you want it to be. I would recommend anywhere between 65 to 60 to 72 inches. Usually it's, you go by about the wingspan of the person, but I kind of like mine a little longer. Sometimes I usually do, I'm about 64 inches tall. I usually do mine about 72 inches, but you do it as long as you want. You just keep repeating those rows, and that's it. That's how you make this awesome hat, which I think turned out amazing. Possibly one of my nicest hats I've done in a while. And the matching scarf to go with it, which will look amazing as well. And I cannot wait to see your guys's. So when you make this, I can't wait to see what color and what yarn you choose. Don't forget to show me a picture on my Bagoday Crochet Facebook page or my Instagram page. And please don't forget to hit that like and that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my videos or tutorials. Thanks everybody for watching. Bye guys.